Well, that brings up the a point I want to discuss later is how science arrives at some of these timelines too. I mean, I'm not particularly a young Earth guy, um, but I do have some technical problems um, with and answers I've never been able to get from experts in radioactive dating that I'll discuss later. But um, I grant you that there have certainly been many events that went beyond the ability of creatures to adapt. Or if they adapted, they turned into something so different we don't realize that we still have the offspring of the ones that were wiped out. But um, like I say, this is a developing line of things. I think that as we study more of these things in detail, that we're going to find more instances where there is a somewhat gradual change that's too fast for evolution to cause an adaptation, but a pre-designed contingency plan in the genes kicks in, so that the next generation or the generation after that or whatever expresses different genes. It's not that the genome has changed, it's just that it's being expressed differently. Different genes have been activated environmentally, and like I say, this is a radical new thought, but it seems to really be true.
That's testable. It is possible to test that theory then, because if all the information that is needed for any upcoming events is already present within the DNA, it should be possible to get those genes to express. So you should be able to find that you can.
Well, that's what we were talking about,
right,
with
but
the mouse.
It's also possible that the mouse had those genes in it from past instances. See what I'm saying? So, in other words,
right. That you mean he'd evolved through a dry phase and then into a wet phase.
But what I'm saying is, you take something that doesn't have that history, and you try to see if there's anything that shouldn't be there, and then you would be able to at least you could make a pretty good case about that.
In other words, could you find adaptations that have never been needed before, like for example, resistance to
right,
to plutonium or some bizarre thing?
See,
well, and that's an interesting thing, is that allergies, believe it or not, there's a record of every possible allergy inside you, and your body actually does respond to an allergen according to its library of possible allergens. And this even applies to man-made allergies of man-made substances.
I was thinking of
that's an example
have you heard about
of something
the bacteria
like that.
That can eat nylon? There's this one type of if you could find
I haven't heard about it, but I mean, I can accept that.
Bacteria that haven't encountered nylon, and you can still find that they have the genes within there to eat nylon, then that would be a really good case, because I mean, nylon hasn't been around. It's a completely unnatural kind of fabric. So, this is stuff that would be testable, and I think would be interesting and could conceivably point to something like that. But the research would have to be done on it.
Well, my whole, point in this stuff isn't, particularly to convince anybody that yes, there has to be a God at this point. My point is that that one can construct a design-based, a creation based on design that is respectable. And I understand a lot of the Fruit Loop stuff that's out there that purports to do that, and it's just goofy stuff. But I'm saying that I'm trying to to promote a serious proposition, so that my goal is just that people will say, well, I still kind of think there's no God, but maybe, type of thing. So if I can get people to move from, it just seems utterly unlikely that there could be any designer, because evolution is good enough to explain this, to, well, design is also a pretty good thing, if you allow that they could have evolved or could have always been or whatever.
I don't have a problem with somebody thinking that creationism is possible, as long as they want to do the research that would be necessary to show that it is possible, and that it fits with what we have in a way that it explains and makes predictable tests. The big thing that I have a problem with is before that research has been done, a lot of people want to put it into textbooks, stuff like that, like it's already been shown. Yeah, that's my big issue with it.
Well, there are secular scientists that dispute evolution and say, look, there isn't enough time for this to have happened on Earth, and then, like I say, we're back to our infinitude of universes and so on. But so there is serious science that says that evolution is not necessarily the final word on the thing. It certainly seems that there's enough to the design argument that that people should be considering, at least asking the question, could the first principle be, some kind of powerful being that could intelligently arrange things so that they would work together, much as we design a watch or a car or something. And one of the glaring problems with evolution, and many evolutionists have commented on this problem, that's where they come up with the hopeful monster hypothesis, is that you look at the taxonomy of animals, and it depends on how you define your words, but there are profoundly clean divisions between major species of animals. There isn't anything that's partway between a cat,
there wouldn't be, though,
some kind of a cat and some kind of a wolf or dog. There
wouldn't be a half dog, half cat.
Duckbill platypus as between mammals and lizards.
There wouldn't be a half dog, half cat.
Well, sure there would be. I mean, you'd have to,
because
you're saying we had all these.
There is, in fact, a common ancestor, but it's not around today.
No, I don't mean they'd be half dog and half. I agree that you can arrange things and postulate that this is descended from that, and that these have the common ancestor and so on. But my problem is that in the fossil record, you see a bunch of leaps. You don't see a continuous record of things just going step by step by step by step. There's a clean break between you see the so-called common ancestor, then you see a cat over here and you see a dog over here, and or a wolf or whatever, and it's not just in that